What's up, gang? What's up, gang? Thanks for listening to or watching the Undiplomatic Podcast. I'm your host, Van Jackson. Another live edition. Is this becoming a trend? I don't know. So I've got a little quote. This kind of sets things up, gives us a sense of where we are, right? This is an exact quote, by the way. This is Biden. This is last week. He says, quote, "They're trying to push me out of the race. Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I'm staying in the race. I'll beat Trump again in 2020. 2020. Everything is fine. Everything is fine." So it's July 9th in America, July 10th in New Zealand, 2024, just to be clear. and the full congressional leadership on the Democratic side has supposedly met by now to talk about the Biden crisis, right? And that's a little bit of what's spurring this live show. But the greater urgency is that, my people, the leading lights of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, the Social Democratic share of the party, the squad, specifically AOC, came out vocally in support of Biden as the candidate, as the guy to beat Trump. So I want to make sense of that, or like try to, because it's inexplicable on its face, obviously. But just since last week, a lot has already changed. It's a fast-moving train. On July 6th, just a couple days ago, a week after the world historically bad debate performance, Biden did an interview with George Stephanopoulos at ABC News, and it was supposed to be a way to shake off people's doubts about his age and make his case for why he can defeat Trump. And it would be good. It would have been good to restore some confidence. But surprise, it was a fucking train wreck. The interview added to all the confirmation bias that we already had about this guy ain't fucking it. It's more obvious than ever that Biden is not the guy to beat MAGA in 2024. He's not capable. He's lost the confidence of the people, of the party, even of a lot of the elites, and he probably shouldn't be president right now. So the interview was pre-recorded. Stephanopoulos was throwing Biden softballs, and Biden was whiffing. He did his whispery voice shit. He had no explanation for why he shit the bed in the debate. And then most of his sentences were just fragments where like key words were missing. It was disturbing. And then he's also, on top of all of that, said a bunch of things that are just like dumb, like either gaffes on gaffes on gaffes or indicators of bad judgment, or both. It was just all bullshit. And I don't want to make this whole episode is not about the Stephanopoulos interview, although it's a bit of a sort of roadmap for what we're dealing with here. But there is one part of the interview I want to pull out because it's my beat, foreign policy. Oh my God. So Biden's case to Stephanopoulos for why he should be the guy, like why he has the divine right of kings, which is something he actually alluded to in the fucking interview. The case for it, in Biden's own words, is Biden's foreign policy. You got that? So his bullshit, militarist, secretive, unaccountable, anti-democratic, anti-working class, anti-peace, money suck, genocidal foreign policy, the thing that Biden administration has been worst on, the issue area where he consistently polls the lowest. Foreign policy is supposed to be why he should be president for 4 more years? Are you fucking kidding me? Who told him to say that shit? What world is he living in that he thinks he has a good foreign policy record? Gotta breathe. Biden said, "I'm the guy who kept expanding NATO. I'm the guy who got AUKUS," which, as a parenthetical, AUKUS has kind of stuck a pipe bomb in Australian politics. Like, it's become a liability for Australia's Labour Party. And AUKUS is wildly unpopular in the Pacific region where it should matter the most. But put that stuff aside, it gets better. And by better, I mean worse, right? Biden said, I'm the guy that got the Japanese to expand their defense budget. Again, that's not a good thing. And you shouldn't be bragging about that. But also, it's not really true. Like, Japan would be spending more on defense if Trump were president too. Maybe even more so, right? It would be more urgent. But either way, you don't go bragging about that shit, man. Like, I made one of our supplicant client states spend less money on public welfare so that they could spend more money on a warfighting machine. Like, okay, Churchill, you think that's a good look? You go around saying that shit, right? And then he goes on, Biden, this is Biden to Stephanopoulos again. This is a quote. Who's going to be able to hold NATO together like me? Who's going to be able to be in a position where I'm able to keep the Pacific Basin in a position where we're at least checkmating China? Who's going to do it? Nobody but me. Okay, so first of all, nobody says Pacific Basin anymore. that's a 1990s like strategic geographic reference, right? Second, nobody's checkmating China. Like, what are you talking about? If anything, we're kind of checkmating ourselves the last few years, right? You can check out the Undiplomatic newsletter if you want to go deeper on this, because I write about this shit a lot. But Biden's policies are actively making Asia and the Pacific less secure, more of a powder keg, right? We make war more likely because of how we respond to China and how China responds to what we do, right? So we're backing repressive regimes across most of Asia and the Middle East so that we can checkmate China in our fucking imaginations. You know, we're actively maintaining imperial relations in the year of our Lord 2024 in the Pacific. And I mean literally, like, we're preserving colonies in the Pacific. And it's in the name of great power competition with China. It's evil shit, right? And we're actively trying to contain and kneecap the only country that has the capacity to support a just green transition around the world. Obviously, I'm talking about China. And then to top it all off, in the geography that policymakers are most concerned about, which is Taiwan, we have been checkmated by China for 10 to 15 years. The balance of power, the correlation of forces in the Taiwan Strait overwhelmingly favors China unless we're willing to fight a nuclear war. And that's been the case for a while. And there's nothing we can do to change that because it's a geographic constraint. Power projection is a bitch. And the checkmating is in reverse if we're going to think in checkmate terms, but we have an interest in not thinking that way, right? So no, we're not fucking checkmating China. And if we want to have a shit over militarized Asia policy, well, any of the empty vessels of the Democratic Party can do that. I mean, Trump can do that, right? So Pacific Basin, what are you talking about? Checkmating China, what are you talking about? And then third, Biden is literally saying that only I can solve it about all the foreign policy issues. And when Trump said exactly that same shit, we screamed fascism on MSNBC and CNN, just like we screamed kids in cages when Trump did it. But then when Biden does it, it's tough on immigration. We screamed Trump's launching a trade war on China. But now that Biden is out hawking Trump on Chinese tariffs, we just call it industrial policy. It's Bidenomics. Oh, it's post-neoliberal. Like, feudalism is post-neoliberal too, right? So it's all fucking bullshit, right? This is why everybody thinks the two parties is the same. Like, people are alienated from the voting process because you don't give them a choice, you know? But let's move on. Stephanopoulos ain't everything. Also, it makes me want to punch a pillow. So the larger pattern of moves within Democratic Party politics this past week, clearly coordinated, but clearly contested and imperfectly coordinated, and all of it net is very worrying. So like, the Democratic Party is evidently in chaos, and the more of an insider you are, the more you're probably feeling it and going through it, you know? So like, on one level, yes, Every pundit, every news host, every columnist with a brain, everybody who saw the debate knows Biden ain't the guy to beat MAGA in 2024. And the polls show that. And you even have bigwig Democratic Party strategists basically saying that, right? Like David Axelrod. You had some members of Congress even saying that, Adam Schiff, Mark Warner. But you also had the leading candidates to replace Biden who aren't already in the Biden administration, basically all come out and say Biden or bust, like Gretchen Whitmer, Gavin Newsom. We talked about them last week, right? And then even AOC, et tu AOC, right? They all closed ranks preemptively. We have time to rally another candidate ahead of the convention. We can unfuck this, but we got to move now, right? And these politicians are once again foreclosing on the possibilities of a better future and making sure that we lock in basically the worst possible version of the world. Thanks a lot. You know, CNN did an aggregate of all the polls and found, like, the poll of polls. They found that Biden is in his worst poll position ever against Trump, that the polls in 2020 overestimated Biden's margin of victory. And right now, July 2024, Biden is the first Democrat to trail in national July polls since 2000. So in 24 years of elections, the first Democrat to be behind in polling in July. And yet AOC came out on July 8th and said, quote, "I spoke with the president extensively this weekend. He has made abundantly clear that he is in this race. He has made abundantly clear that he is not leaving the race. He is the nominee. I am making sure that I support him and making sure that we win in November." MSNBC host Joy Reid went even further than that. And she said, "I'd vote for Biden in a coma. Tell me who the nominee is going to be. Let me know when you guys are finished fighting amongst yourselves who I got to vote for in November to keep Hitler out the White House." So if you're backing this man, like, even if he's a vegetable, then your voice doesn't really matter, or it's like not productive, right? You're not making a case that he should be president over some other Democrat. You're letting him opportunity hoard the most powerful office in the land, right? You would just prefer a vegetable to a fascist. And that's really damning, like the idea that, like, I'd vote for Biden in a coma is like satire come to life. Like, that's one of the reasons people mock Democrats, but it is the prevailing sentiment among a lot of leading Democrats. And look, there's an element of sympathy that I'm capable of having here with some Democratic elites. Like, if it's November 1st and we're about to vote and there's no time to change anything, there's a vegetable and a fascist, and you got to choose one. That's what the ballot says. In that case, I understand why you would choose the vegetable, right? But this is a twisted version of the same fake logic that liberals have been using the past 18 months, right? They've been telling us for a year and a half that it's Biden or nobody, Biden or Trump. And that's not true. We're making it true. Pretty soon it's going to be true, but it's not true yet. They've been trying to impose a reality that has not actually been reality. And they've mobilized the full coercive powers of the Democratic Party to enforce loyalty top to bottom, and it's not even working. They're temporarily holding together a fiction that reality will punish. I mean, this is one of the insights from world politics, from like international theory. You use your use of coercive power as a sign of hegemonic decline. Using force is an act of desperation. So that's where we're at, right? And that situation that we find ourselves in, that's what's crying out for explanation. So you can only interpret this giant fucking mess of even like the leftists, the progressives, sort of co-signing Biden right now, in spite of him shitting the bed on the world stage. Like, you can only co-sign that and like have this be the situation for one of a few reasons, right? And this is the core of like what I wanted to get to. One theory that I've heard about the squad and AOC in particular is that you don't want the left leading the campaign to replace Biden, because the left and the Biden administration have not been friends, to say the least, you know? And so Biden will never listen to the left, right? Especially if it's telling him to leave office. And there's a way in which this theory is probably true, you know? The problem is that if the left is vocally backing Biden, that actually makes it harder for centrists and liberals to ease Biden out. You know, if AOC is like, he's the guy, how is DNC leadership going to be like, he is not the guy? You know, that's tough. That's tough to do. So if that's what's going on, it's the bet is not going to work. And we're kind of stuck with Biden. A second theory to explain this kind of weird situation is that the leading Democrats are positioning themselves to run for 2028 against Trump, and they think that they're in a better position to do that in 2028 than now. You know, running now is almost certainly a loser for a lot of people. You have a short runway, right? And I can see that, right? That's some craven bullshit, though. That sells out democracy. That sells out the country. I'd like to believe that there's no way politicians are making that kind of calculation, right? I'd like to pretend, or at least think that, like, you know, Newsom and Whitmer and these guys, they're pretending like the vegetable is the guy for some reason other than personal benefit. But I don't know. I don't know. And then the third theory, this I think has the most going for it, right? The Democratic leadership got together and they realized Biden is not leaving. And, you know, I'm sure you know this. Biden sent a letter to the House being like, you will have to pry the White House from my G.I. Joe Kung Fu grip, cold dead body. I'm not leaving. So if Joe won't go, Kamala could conspire with the DNC and invoke the 25th Amendment and remove Weekend at Bernie's from the Oval Office. And that's maybe what should happen because of what's at, like, how much power the presidency has. But the calculation has to be that a hostile takeover of the presidency would be even less popular than running a vegetable for president, right? I can see how a Democratic strategist would be like, if we look like we're openly pushing out our own leader, we're probably not going to inspire confidence. And so we might as well let the vegetable run, right? I think that's what's going on. So this is not a good situation. Biden's narcissism has trapped Democratic leadership. It's trapped us. If he's not willing to go, forcing him against his will publicly is probably a loser. I can understand why people might think that, you know. So Biden as leader has power in this moment, precisely in the form of holding a divided politics hostage. If he decides to seek re-election, which is what he's saying for now, although I think this changes. It doesn't matter that he's a sociopath who confuses his own power with the success of the country, which, by the way, sounds very Trumpian, right? All that matters is that the only way we can remove him from office against his will is with the 25th Amendment, which DNC elites almost certainly believe hands the election to Trump, you know? But ultimately, the problem with this blind Democratic loyalty thing is that it totally deflects from having any kind of strategy whatsoever. There is no Biden theory of victory. There is no Democratic Party theory of victory, at least for 2024. For some Machiavellian politicians, there may be a theory of victory for 2028 that requires sacrificing 2024. But that's insane. That's insane. So the irony right now is that to the extent the world is in crisis or heading toward one, it is or is going to be an American-made crisis. You know, electoral democracy has been producing pretty good results the past few weeks. In Mexico, in France, in the UK, even in Iran, they just elected a reformer. It's kind of a big deal, you know. Progressives are beating the far right in these places. But right now, it looks like America is going to be the sick man of the world. We're the anomaly. We're not on the left beats right trend. And that's going to have spillover consequences for the world. So, once again, thanks a lot. What do we do with this? I don't know. But those are the three theories that I've got kicking. Biden is not inspiring confidence. And I still bet that Biden is not the guy come November. Something is going to shake loose. Hopefully he stays alive. We need him to stay alive, especially if he's going to be the nominee. But he's not fit for this fight. We need somebody else. We need somebody else fast. So that's all I got for now. Hopefully you enjoyed this. All right. Catch you next time. Peace.